So, Harry, it's really a pleasure to have this opportunity to speak with you about the new album. There are a lot of single out now there. So perhaps my first question will be about you, about this band, incredible RM Scarem. Great band, great album this time. So if you could do a little presentation about you, about the band, and about who you are.
Sure. Well, we started off putting the band together in the late 80s, and we've put out our first record in 1991 when we signed to Warner Music Canada. So we were together for a few years just writing songs and recording, and that's basically when our professional career started as Harem Scarum. And we started releasing records, and by the time our second record came out, that was called Mood Swings. That's when it started to happen for us internationally. On our first record, we were released in Canada, Spain, and Portugal, but by the time Mood Swings was over, we had over 50 countries that had released Mood Swings. So really, Mood Swings was the beginning of Harem Scarum getting out internationally. And specifically, it started to go very well for us in Japan and Southeast Asia. So we really had quite a career based on pockets of Europe, but a lot in based out of Southeast Asia, Japan, and a little bit in Canada in the beginning. But you know, as musical styles changed in the early 90s, um, we basically focused more on international territories as opposed to our own backyard. And I'm sure you're aware and your listeners are aware that in the 90s, once grunge came around, anybody that looked and sounded like us wasn't on the radio anymore and wasn't getting any attention from, regular media or radio stations in general. So we just kept doing what we loved to do. And luckily, we built up an audience around the world. And here we are still today in 2025 putting out records.
Yes, it's incredible because you do a European tour. It was in April and May. You have this opportunity to play in Spain, in London, in Deutschland too. Lot of gigs. How was it finally to come back in Europe? Because you are very well known in Europe. You have a lot of fun, a lot of people who like the band and like what you do. So how was this tour, this little tour in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. We had not played until I think the last time we were out playing was 2017. Then we made a record in 2020 called Change the World. And when that album came out, it was exactly when COVID hit. So all the
Mm.
touring plans were canceled, and we hadn't played until a few months ago, as you just mentioned. But the highlight for us this time on the European tour was actually doing a festival in France. So we'd
Yeah.
never been to France ever in our entire career. So that was actually on our bucket list of things that we wanted to do. And so I'm glad we got to do that. And it was just well received all around. It was great to see a lot of the old fans that have been with us for 30, 35 years. And we're all still alive and kicking.
Yes, you are. Yes, you tell me about France. It was a Steel Rock Festival. It was in Berlin in France. First gig in France since the beginning of the band. I suppose it was something special for you to be in France after so many years.
Yeah, I mean, going to any country now, because we've been to Europe and Asia so many times. I mean, I always joke that I stopped counting trips to Japan after 25 times. So the amount of times that we've toured around and how many countries we've been to so many times, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Germany, but never France. And that was always one for us that, I've been as a tourist and loved it, but would love to come and spend more time. Love the French food, love the vibe, and I want to spend more time there in the future. So
Yeah,
definitely.
I hope that you will come very soon in Paris to play and you could do the tourist in Paris. Uh,
Exactly.
If you never go to Paris, there is something very important. Also, it was the 27th April. You play in the Frontiers Rock Festival as headliner the last day with a lot of great bands like Asia, Winger, Treat, Storas, Robin McCauley. How do you live this festival? How was it for you? Is it important to? I read all about your show, and your show was incredible. Everybody says that. How do you feel about that at this show in the
Yeah,
front?
I mean, look, yeah, I mean, Frontiers has been, our label in Europe for quite some time now. I think we're getting close to 30 years now. So doing the festival for them, it just kind of felt like coming home, like so many people that work for Frontiers and the whole organization. Just great. I can't say enough good things about it. It was really awesome. And the festivals in Europe, like I said, we've been coming so long now to these things that you literally start to become friends with the fans, like
Yeah.
because you see people over and over again and you talk to them. So it's really awesome, like at this point in our lives, we started as teenagers. I'll be 57 this year, and it's really been a lifetime of doing music, and we're very grateful at this point in our careers that we get to go out, and it's an awesome community to be a part of. So I think the Frontiers Festival was a 10 out of 10 experience for us. We loved it.
So finally, 5 years after, you come back with this new album, Chasing Euphoria. Great album. I see a lot of review because now the album is out since 2 months, and they are very, very good review. How do you live the writing process for this one? I suppose it will be very different for the last one that you write in the COVID period, and it was very different. So now, how was it? Is it a huge job after so many 38 years? You begin to write songs?
Yeah, it does get more difficult from the perspective of we don't want to repeat ourselves, and so we're definitely making a certain style of rock record that sounds familiar. We don't think we're reinventing the wheel. We just
Mhm.
want to do a really good job of it, like everybody that buys a record that listens to music, they want to hear what they think are great songs, so we're always just trying to write songs that we think are great, and hopefully our fans agree with us. Um, but it gets harder and harder every time we make a record because during the writing process, we literally sometimes can't remember. We've done hundreds of songs now. This is our 16th studio record, and so even on 10, 12 songs a record, you're getting into the 170, 180 songs category. And then whatever projects we've done for other people and other writing, um, we've written hundreds of songs now. And it feels like, um, that riff might sound a little bit like that. You get an up-tempo rock song. that- there's only so many things you can do
Mhm.
within reason if you want it to sound a certain way and you want your fans to like it. So we really feel that, we're trying to be clever about reinventing what we do, but also stay true to the rock roots and the AOR sound that we became popular doing. And we understand that that's what our fans want, but
Right.
we also don't want to keep repeating ourselves over and over again. So we try to walk the line and be very careful about, the songwriting process.
Finally, do you have the impression it's a return to the roots for the bands to what you can do as best finally in the music that also people like fans like to listen the music that they know at the beginning RM Scarem?
Yeah, I mean, I do think at this stage it's important. We got all of the other things out of our system. We made a lot of left turns. We tried lots of different styles of music to entertain ourselves, to maybe sound more modern at a certain time or more relevant, to do what maybe record companies expected of us in in the early days. But we're products of when we started writing songs with Harem Scarum, we were, listening to what was on the radio, but believe it or not, it was Bon Jovi and Whitesnake and Kiss. And,
Yeah. But
that's what was on the radio in 1986, 1987. And when we started writing and recording seriously in 88, 89, in the 90s, we're a product of Def Leppard hysteria and records like that. Like that's what I listened to and went, I love this and I want to make a record that sounds like that. So, when we'd made a few records that we think, sounded or went in that direction, over the years we changed a lot. But now, after all this time, we can look back at the history of the band and the writing and say, hey, you know what? This is where we built our fan base. This is why they were fans in the first place. And so, like I said before, probably for the last three or four records, we've been on a path of doing what we do best, which is sound like Harem Scarum, doing, our first record, Mood Swings, and versions of that style of music. But if I were to, compare it to anything, I would say, yeah, it was like it's built on Def Leppard, Queen, Boston, big backing vocals, big choruses, cool guitar riffs. That's what we're trying to do.
When our world crashed down and I didn't break it, with every truth bent down and forsaken, there's a ghost of what we were.
And finally, you say yes. You produce 16 albums. It was incredible. You are very productive. If finally in 32 years, 16 albums is a lot. And as you said too, you begin in 1991, something like that. And at this time, it was the arrival of the grunge, with Nirvana, Soundgarden, and everything like that. So, how do you feel when you begin? Was it easy with the, I will say, the vague, of the grunge just arrive?
Yeah, I mean, our introduction to the music industry was this is over, we always joke. There's a really cool poster of us playing on a Friday night. It says Harem Scarum album release party, 1991, at a place called the Opera House in Toronto. That was our album release party for our first record on Friday. And then it said Saturday night, Nirvana. And so I said, I think we had 24 hours between the beginning of our career and the end of our career.
Yeah.
So, eh, yeah, we were on tour and we were playing on our first record, and we did a bunch of opening dates for Foreigner here in Canada. And when we were playing with Foreigner, they got dropped by Atlantic Records, and we were like, holy shit, this band has sold 60 million, 80 million
Yeah.
records. We've sold like no records. They've got dropped. They do what we do. I mean, I love Foreigner, a giant influence for me. And so, honestly, if I'm being honest, from the beginning, it was always, uh-oh, like this is trouble. So we just put our head down and we worked and we went out and played our songs, tried again on the next record. We never thought we were going to get to make another record. So
Mhm.
every time we made a record, we put our life into it. It was life or death. And it just felt like that always. And we got used to working like that. And that's why I think we've done so much and we put out so many records, because we never did well enough. We never had a hit that made us millions of dollars. We just kept slowly moving and moving and moving. And in the end, we've sold a couple million records, but it took us 35 years to do it. So we owe it a very strange career.
Yes, but you did it, and finally you are still there 38 years after, so that's quite incredible, and you are informed because this album is a great album. Like I said, you choose this title, Chasing Euphoria. What was the idea when you choose this title, Chasing Euphoria? That's the tracks who begin the album. Also, pure, I will say, pure RM Scarem. It was also a
Yeah.
single. So what was the idea when you choose the title track?
Well, I mean, Chasing Euphoria, we started to put together the pieces of that song, and the analogy there for the song title and the song is just, everybody is chasing something in life, relationships, love, business, whatever. Everybody has goals, everybody's chasing something, and that is the euphoria part of this. Everybody's looking for that next thrill, that next goal to achieve. And that's what that song is about. And we thought, well, that's a cool concept for an album title and a pretty interesting message in general. So yeah, that was the concept of the song and the record.
I love the cover because this guy alone and the light in the back at the end of the cover. What was the idea? I will say in French we say espoir. That was the idea. The euphoria at the end of the course, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's walking into the land of opportunity, the land of it's kind of like the promised land is where this figure is going into. And again, the analogy that can be you, that can be me. We're all trying to get somewhere.
Mhm.
Everybody's trying to move forward in life. Everybody's trying to look for that better thing, that better opportunity to finally arrive somewhere, and that's the analogy there.
You are in a studio, I see, just behind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
suppose it's your home studio. Yes, we see very well
Yeah.
with a huge material. So is it in this studio you record your vocals?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing everything here for quite some time. I used to have a proper commercial recording studio where we did all the Harem Scarum records. So this was the first album that Harem Scarum has ever done where we just all worked individually in our home studios.
Mhm.
So that was new. But I think at the end it still sounds like us. It doesn't sound that different from anything that we would normally do. If
Yeah.
Pete's playing guitar and I'm singing and we're writing the songs, I think the end result, no matter where we are recording or where we happen to be mixing or tracking a record, I think the end result just kind of it always ends up sounding like us.
Is it more easy finally when you got your home studio? You can do a lot of tracks. You can repeat all the time you want to sing. Is
Yeah.
it finally a pleasure? You get more pleasure to record that in a studio with the pressure, the last date, and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, you would think, I mean, we joke that we don't make records any faster than we used to for some strange reason. I don't know why. It's true of all the bands, even when I'm producing records. Technology has allowed us all to work quicker, easier, more, I don't want to say relaxed, but there is a component of working digitally on computers that just makes life easier. But we don't seem to make the records any quicker, and maybe that's because of all the leisurely time that we have to take to do it. You can explore all the possibilities; they're endless. So maybe you spend more time thinking about things, trying things, as opposed to just writing songs and going to the studio and recording it. But um, we've evolved over time with technology as a band, as producers, engineers, and mixers. And that's what I do, I mean, for a living as well. I mean, I make records for other people. I'm primarily a mastering engineer, so I work on all
Mhm.
different kinds of projects and records all the time, every day. So look, it's just comfortable for me, and I've grown with the technology, so I'm very comfortable with it.
Yes, because you know the first technology where there are only, if you want to record something, only there is only the studio, of course, at this time in the 80s, like many bands record. I see that Darren Smith, who is your drummer since the beginning of us, not on this record, but he played with you in the beginning on many albums. And now he sings on this album. It's not the first time. It was important that he sings also on one song on this album.
Yeah, I mean, Darren's a great singer, and he actually sang on a song on our second record, Mood Swings, called Sentimental Boulevard, and then he sang another song called Staying Away. I think that's on our fourth record. Can't even remember. But on the last, I don't know, however many in between, we've just gone ahead and made the records and recorded them. So we've always had a weird kind of band relationship dynamic because there was a time in the early 2000s where Darren left. He was working with another band as a lead singer. But then when we came back to do an anniversary tour, Darren came back playing drums, singing. But all the choruses that you hear, that's me and Darren singing in the choruses. We have a very distinct blend, and he's always been involved in the record making process. Even when he wasn't in the band, I would just call him and say, "Hey, come on in, let's do some backing vocals." So it's always been a very friendly relationship, even if we weren't technically in the band together. And that's why Creighton Doan came in and played drums and still is our main studio drummer because that's what he does for a living. So, Darren's a great singer, great live drummer, and it's just been an interesting family of musicians that are friends that come together to make these records.
Yeah, and it's really a great singer that we could say. He sings in other bands, just a singer, not drummer.
Yeah.
About all these songs, there are 10 songs. It's begin with Chasing Euphoria, and the last one is Wasted Years. Is there a song who is very important for you on these 10 songs? I mean, it could be about the lyrics or musically. Is there a song that you are proud of?
I, you know, I, we try to love every song that we finish. Obviously, when you finish them or you start working on them and getting close to finish, some of them just have a magical, way that they come together and you like them a little bit more. It's typically just personal, and then over time that can change. But on this record at this point, I would say songs like Bad Way and actually Chasing Euphoria. I think Chasing Euphoria is my favorite song on the record because I think it's a perfect representation of what Harem Scarum is. The music is a little bit dark and moody, but the song is melodic, very singable chorus. And I like that combination. So if I had to pick one song, I would pick Chasing Euphoria.
Choices in front of me, they look clear, but they're all in minds. We're all drawing our own chalk lines in the smoke and mirrors, helping one left to find. I pour the gasoline on the bridges are burned. Put it down to the ground like a river I ran. Chasing euphoria, every cloud runs down, every stone of a turn. Can feel the hole in your heart. Put it down to the ground like a river I ran.
At this time.
How do you feel finally, 38 years after the beginning of the band? The first album came in 1991, like you said. You record some demo before to be signed. But how do you feel when you look back about all this year? What is your feeling about the band, about your life? If finally, you live in the music all this year, and you have the opportunity to play many gigs with many bands too. How do you feel about that?
Well, and I would say that the songs that we choose to play live are the songs that we probably feel most proud of or strongly that they've lived over, this time period and come out the other side, and it's something that we like and we're proud of. It's not like, I listen to the first record and I go, yeah, I would never write and record it this way, listening to it now. Same with Mood Swings, but Mood Swings has many songs on it that are fan favorites. And so, we play No Justice, If There Was a Time, Stranger Than Love. Um, yeah, it's a weird thing. It's almost like it's not me, like it's not somebody that I relate to. So when you
Yeah.
think about our first record,
Uh-huh.
I'm 19 when we signed that record deal. I wrote some of those songs when I was 17, 18 years old.
Oh
And
yeah.
now I go, what did I know about anything when I'm 17, 18 years old? So writing lyrics, even the music, it just feels like amateur a little bit to me now, like a naive, especially lyrically. But we were smart enough to work with other songwriters in the beginning. And I think the songs that turned out the best are the co-writes with more experienced songwriters at the time, while we were still teenagers and figuring out how to make records. We literally learned how to make a record while making our first record. We did not know how to make a record before we started making our first record. It was only because of the people that we were working with, like Kevin Doyle specifically.
Mhm.
Kevin was 10 years older than us, so we thought he was old because he was 31 or 32, but
It's an old guy
yeah,
for you.
yeah, he was an old guy for us, and we are laughing, but he just finished the big Alana Miles record that sold 6 million records. He'd worked on a Kiss record. He did some Hall and Oates stuff. And so to us, he was like, this guy knows how to make a record. So we listened to him and he taught us so well. And so by the time we finished our first record, we were way, way further ahead than the day we started it. And then when we did Mood Swings, I think that that's why there was such a giant leap in the songwriting, production, and just the general record itself because of what we learned making the first record. And then we were kind of students of recording, and we just tried to build and learn from that. And so, to answer your question, at this point in time, anything old that I listen to, I just think, well, I think I could do it better now, and I think that's true, but
Mhm.
it doesn't take away from the magic of what that was at that time. We can't recreate the first record again. We can't recreate the second record. That was a stamp in time, doing the best we could do with our abilities at that moment, technically, what was available at the time. We recorded on tape. There was no auto tune. There was no going back and fixing
Yeah.
stuff. We had to do a take from beginning to end, doing drums and stuff. There was no punching in on analog tape for drums, or it was very difficult. So we came up through all of that, and so we learned how to make records the hard way, but no regrets. I mean, I'm glad I have the knowledge of how to do that.
And this album now it's considered by a lot of people like a cult album, a mythic album, something like that. That's why you choose to re-record this album. I see that you re-record this album some not some years ago,
Yeah.
and a lot of people say that don't touch to a cult album.
Yeah. Well, we worked really hard to make that. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do it again. That's for sure. By the time I finished that re-record, it was like, oh my God, because what I just described, you kind of can't go back. And I would agree with that. But since we were doing it, we didn't figure that out until while we were doing it. And so if I knew what I knew then, before I started, I would have said, let's not re-record this because holy shit, was it ever a lot of work and to catch that vibe again. But I think if you listen to it, I think we did a good job of the re-record. I think it's very faithful to the original recordings, a bit more modern, because I find the first version is like just the drum processing, the reverbs. It's like it's very 80s sounding and over processed, where the re-record of it, I think, is just a little bit more of a normal modern recording of it that will stand the test of time a little bit longer. But the key reason for doing that is because we wanted to own it. That was our biggest record, the Mood Swings record. And, we were on Warner for the first 11 years of our career. So the first 7 records we ever did, Warner owns those records. So we thought it'd be really cool to do the re-record so we could own it, like at least own the re-recorded version of it. So that was, for me, the 90% of the motivation for doing it.
A good show in Paris in the future. So thank you, Harry, very, very much for the interview. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Okay. Bye,
Bye
Pascal. Talk
bye.
soon.
See you
Okay.
next. Bye.